Good morning and welcome to Mayor's Weekly. As always, we're pleased to have you with us. And joining me today is our fire chief, Danta Fields. I asked Chief Fields a few days ago to join me this morning, and what we're going to talk about is the many things that the fire department is charged with doing, and we'll tighten our focus a little bit based on the events of earlier in the week. Chief Fields, you've been doing this for a long time, and I guess first and foremost for a fire department is protecting life and property in the event of a fire, and then we have sickness, all sorts of accidents, automobile accidents. You guys, the first responders, and people see our fire vehicles every day in our city doing those sort of things. But when you move on from that, something that people really wouldn't have an occasion to observe or even know about is we have a fire code in our city, I guess as most cities have, and we have a fire code for a reason, and that is to ensure safety of property and people. And the enforcement of that fire code is rests with you as head of our fire chief, now head of our fire department. And rather than, we probably won't talk specifically about the business that was closed for a couple of temporarily closed, I'll say, but we talk a little bit about our fire code and what we do, maybe the events that triggered this business being closed, and what you do, how you gather information about that sort of thing. And that's a lot of stuff, and we have 15 minutes here. We could probably talk to lunchtime about this, but Chief, if you could kind of give us an overview of that, and then we'll maybe explore it in a little more depth.
Yes, sir. Well, the city of Jasper has adopted the 2015 IBC, the International Building Code. Along with that, we also go along with the National Fire Code, NFPA 1. But and what it does, the whole premise of it is to protect occupant safety. That's human life. That's the number one priority, and people have to understand that it is the minimum requirement. That is what the least you can do to do that. And they set those codes in place, and it's not something that they just come up with on a whim. It's after thousands of hours of research and trial and error and millions of dollars spent on this, and it is every 3 years they look at it and they adapt it and change it because you get new building materials, new technologies come out, things like that, and they change it, and that's why it's updated. But what happens, we have the fire code. Any new structure that you build, it has to be conform with that fire code, which is, like I said, the 2015 IBC, and also every other, all national codes, anything that supersedes it. And we will come out and we'll do inspections. We also have buildings and businesses within the city limits that we go and do inspections on a yearly basis sometimes, and we'll do it anytime on if they recommend or call us and say, hey, can you come out and look at our place?
Let me ask you that. Now, you're doing that on a yearly basis. Is it that's not because you're suspect or something, that's just the procedure?
Oh, yes, sir. No, we have it's a schedule. Like a lot of places, there's quite a few. My deputy chief, Heath Smith, he's my fire marshal, and he keeps quite busy going out and doing inspections on places. And I mean, and it's helpful sometimes. A lot of we were speaking earlier about how used to it was a lot more common to find people that would try to skirt fire codes, save a little bit of money here and there and everything. But nowadays, you just don't see that quite as much, especially in new buildings and everything. Everybody's gotten very up to date, and they conform to the fire code. They make sure it's a big safety issue, and nobody wants to have that liability.
Well, Chief, let's use a real life example right here in the city along those lines. We've had 3 new businesses open in the city this week, but we'll use Huddle House. They could not have gotten that business open without passing our fire department's inspection. Talk a little bit about what would go on in a situation like that and getting those folks past your inspection, what you look at.
Yes, sir. On final inspections on new openings like that, we will go in. A lot of times it's not even wholly complete, but everything that we need to see would be complete, and we will not sign off on everything unless you look for exits. Every exit must be marked. Every exit must be lit. You must have lighting sufficient for if anybody's in there and you have an incident for everybody to get out. You have to have backups on that. You have to have fire extinguishers placed in the correct location. They have to be within, they have to be serviceable. They have to be working. And usually new places like that, they're going to have new ones anyway. So we go in, we do that. But there's a lot of other nuances. The new structures and stuff, that's not a very big concern. Like I said, it's mostly, I mean, they're good about doing what they're supposed to do. It's the existing structures that sometimes we have issues with. Some of the major problems and they're not major problems even. They can be if it wasn't caught and corrected. You wouldn't think about it, but extension cords. People using extension cords as a permanent source of power. Normally in a residence, you wouldn't think anything about that. You run an extension cord, power up fan, a radio, something like that. But when you're running, I have seen people have actually cut out places in their walls so they can run an extension cord instead of actually running an outlet to a wall. And those things heat up. Those things we've ran many fires that has been caused by extension cords. And people just don't understand that is a major concern.
Yeah. Well, you go back to Huddle House and of course, they're cooking food there, there's heat, use a lot of electricity, maybe use gas or that sort of thing. And when you compare that to one of our businesses that opened here just off of 18th Street, and the lady opened a nice shop there, and she deals in glassware and kitchen furnishings and that sort of thing. She's not cooking anything or whatever. That would get a different look, would it not?
Yes, sir. Anytime you have like that, we will have to do inspections on hood systems. The systems that go over anywhere you've got a grease pit or anything like that, you're going to have a hood system that's going to be operated. You're going to have some material that is designated to come down onto that hood system and or onto the grease pit is what it would be called, and extinguish it. And you have to have a certified person. Anybody that installs those, they have to have a separate certification to do that. And you have to check their credentials. You have to make sure before they go into operation that hood system is working correctly. And it can get expensive when you're dealing with those chemicals and you have to recharge your system and do all that. So everything needs to be done correctly, and usually those guys are pretty swift at what to do. So again, and I've been really lucky, and my deputy chief, we have been dealing with really intelligent and diligent contractors when they've been doing it, and everybody's extremely helpful. Everybody has been extremely open, and we haven't had any issues like as far as that so far.
Right. Okay. Heath, let's talk a little bit about what triggered the temporary closure of this business here. What you had information come to you, and what triggered it, and what were your findings that caused you to make the decision to close that business?
Yes, sir. Anytime, and this happens quite a bit, and it can happen. Once I got a call when I was on shift. It was almost midnight, and received a call that when someone is somewhere and they think that they have overloaded their occupant capacity. They have exceeded the occupant limit of that structure, and we have to go and check it out. Anytime we get a complaint, whether it's from a viable complaint or whatever we think, we go and inspect it. We go and investigate. And there's a lot of times that we do find fault. There are things, some people will say, hey, there's an exit blocked in this place. We go out and we look. If the exit's blocked, we get with the owner, manager, and we say, hey, we need to have this open. This is a means of egress. We need to keep it clear, things like that. And what happened, we had, this is not a first-time thing for the business that we're talking about, but we actually had people that had called to the station. We've had people come down to the fire station in person. Anytime somebody takes the time out of their day to do that, we take it a lot we take it very seriously. It's usually a lot more urgent than somebody just calling, and that's happened quite a bit. So what happens is we will get a complaint, and then we will go to the business and we will investigate and see whether or not that's a valid complaint. We'll take pictures. We'll do it, a complete walkthrough, and of course, we speak with the employees of any business that we go to, and everybody's been extremely forthcoming and helpful. But if it is a valid complaint, we have to tell them until that is rectified, until that code violation is fixed, then it's not safe for public or even the employees to be in there. And a lot of times it is employees that do contact us because if there is an unsafe practice going on, it does need to be fixed. And it just so happened that was the case. But again, it was a couple days later, we received a call, hey, we'd like for you to come back out and look at this again and see if we're good. Went back out, and in, say, a retail store, according to our fire code, you have to have 30 inches of travel between displays. That means that you have, and a good point of fact was when we were doing the investigation, doing the inspection, we did have a customer come up that was in a motorized scooter. It's like a motorized wheelchair thing, and that's a prime example of why that law is there. If you're standing up on 2 feet, you can squeeze by, pretty good place, but you don't have that option if you're in a motorized scooter. Any disabled person, and that's a big concern if anything were to happen, and things happen all the time. And that also holds a large liability for that company. And so it's not being heavy-handed or anything like that. You're just protecting the public safety, the employees' safety, and preventing anything from happening like that might come back on them. So, it's a win all the way around. And everybody, like I said, has been very helpful with everything. And it's just something that needs to be, it's a continuing thing. It's not going to be a one-time thing. We're going to constantly get calls. And it's not just one business. We get called on numerous businesses, but most of the time it's a simple fix. Like I said, an exit sign is not lit. They have to be lit. There might be an exit blocked. We go to them and say, hey, your exit needs to remain unblocked, and they fix it right then, and we never hear about it again. So that's what we like to see.
Yeah. Well, Chief, to maybe boil this down just a little bit, we refer to as the aisles between displays. The business receives a shipment of inventory that's boxed or whatever, and those boxes are placed in the aisles in such a way. You mentioned escape route that would prevent a person getting to the escape route. That's pretty much it. It wasn't somebody just decided to stack up some boxes or whatever. And
oh no, sir.
It was not something intentional. People just trying to deal with the inventory that's been shipped to them and hadn't been able to get it on the shelves, and that's it, isn't it?
My understanding, Mayor, is they're dealing with the same issue that my department's dealing with, that everybody else I know about is dealing with, and that's a lack of personnel. It's hard to find people that want to work right now, and when you have one person that's doing everything in your business and trying to complete everything, right. It's hard to keep that up. And there's been times that we've been called out to other places, and they say, hey, because people understand that if you can't get to an egress in a safe manner, they know that. People are aware of that, so they'll call them and they say, hey, this store has a blocked egress that you can't even get to the back of the store. And I will receive that call, and by the time I go out there and look at it, it's already clear, because sometimes they'll put product out in the middle. How can you stock it if it's not out in the aisle? The only time it's a problem is when it's not temporary like that, when it's placed out there and it's not put away and it stays like in that condition. But when we go out, we always, like I said, we do a thorough inspection, take many pictures, and make sure that everything is well documented, and that business owner is well aware of everything, and they're very, very clear on the violations. I'll also cite the violation, and that way if they wanted to look it up, or I'd even look it up for them and show the exact violation. That way it's just a clear, there's no misunderstandings about it and everything. But like I said, every time that we have went out so far in my entire experience in the fire service so far, 23 years in Jasper. We've never had anybody that was willfully incompliant, like they did it out of just spite or anything like that. As soon as they're made aware, they take care of the problem and it's fixed.
Well, Chief, you and I both agree with this, and we never want it to move to this level, but the fire chief is a sworn officer of the law. I believe that's correct, isn't it? And you have the same authority as our police chief or our police officer to issue a citation if you see the need for it. Is that correct?
In certain instances, that's correct. I mean, of course, Chief Poe is going to have more the extent of him being able to levy fines like that, and it expands beyond what my scope of power would be. But anything that falls under, and I've been doing some research on it and trying to figure out what the exact case is, and I mean we're getting pretty far with that. But there are many cities they do have a fine schedule already in place. Some of them are more severe than others, and I can see if you have a repeat offender that is just there is no other way to rectify the situation. That I can see maybe being extreme, but most of the time, like I said, it's a one and done situation. We go out and we say, hey, got to fix this. If we have to keep coming out for it, you might receive some penalties. I just think that I mean nobody wants to pay money that they don't need to pay. So
yeah. Well, I know we had a situation several years back involving fireworks here in the city, and I know our then fire chief issued a citation after a warning, and
Yes,
and I think people need to know that if there is a violation there, that our fire chief has that authority if need to be exercised.
Yes, sir. Even we have an open burning, a controlled burn. You have to call down at the fire station to obtain a verbal burn permit. We will take all the information and we'll tell them what they can and can't burn, which is you can't burn any petroleum products, which by now is pretty much everything. Any plastic, any rubber, any a lot of our clothing materials, unless it's 100% cotton, it's going to have petroleum in it, and you cannot burn that. That's not really our law. That's the national law. You're looking at EPA there, but you do that, and if we'll get complaints, and according to our ordinance, if they have anybody complains about it or calls about it, because sometimes it will get in their house. They might have asthma, COPD, they can't breathe, and according to our ordinance, if we do receive a complaint, we have to go and tell them to put it out, or either us put it out ourselves. If they refuse to do that, there has been times that we have had to resort to the levying of fines that way too.
Yeah. Well, and touch on that just a little bit. I guess if somebody were to rake up a few limbs on a little grass, that's one thing. But when you start putting smoke in the sky, that's you got to have a permit.
You sure do. Well, you have to have a burn, even if you burn the leaves and the sticks. I mean, you still have to get a permit with us and everything. And usually, and stuff happens. I mean, things you can't control the wind. The wind might pick it up. That's why they call them accidents. It's not intentionally done, and everybody knows that. We just want everybody to be as safe as possible. Try to, you want your burn piles, you want them isolated. You don't want them to be able to where they can jump to a house, to anywhere else. We have a lot of fields around. I mean, you wouldn't think that Jasper has as much hay fields and stuff. I've been in some that it's acres. You have acres and acres of fields that could be gone just like that. And wood line, if it reaches the wood line, you're looking at a totally different situation. And then if it reaches a structure, we're very concerned about that. We will get calls saying that there's a grass fire, brush fire, that's threatening a structure. That's a little bit more serious because once it reaches that, you're looking at possible life safety there as well.
Chief, people have questions. Maybe a person has a concern that they have a neighbor that's burning, whatever. Then they call the fire department and they'll get a response from you or one of your assistants to see if it is a permitted activity. If it's not, then you'll handle it accordingly, will
Yes,
you not?
sir. Always. Yes, sir.
Right, so just call the fire department, and we talk about this fire code, and it's not trying to set up a situation where somebody's telling on everybody every day. But if you have a concern or whatever, then we're always on standby to talk with you and address their concerns.
If anyone ever has a question about anything, fire code, burning, anything like that, any other health situation, anything, if they have question about smoke alarms, anything that they think that we can help with, I would recommend them to call. And if I'm not there, I can guarantee you that I've got some very well-informed officers that are there. And if they need to get a hold of me, I'm a phone call away. But most of the time, any question can be answered. They can call the fire station and get any question that they need to answered right then. And any problem like that, we can deal with it. We can handle it.
Good. Chief, thank you for joining me
Yes,
this
sir.
morning. Look forward to being with you next week, and if you have questions, please send them our way, and we'll provide answers as quickly as possible. Thank you.